We can start now.
All right. Thank you. Welcome to this special discussion that we have every Wednesday called Wednesday Wisdom, which is presented by Businessworld Education in association with BW Businessworld. We have very two special guests today who are going to discuss on various facets of business institutions as well as how tech is playing a very important role in the pandemic driven education that is continued despite the challenges. I want to welcome Mr. Atmanand, Dr. Atmanand, who is a Senior Dean and Senior Professor of Economics at MDI Gurgaon.
No. Just for correction, I am Director MDI Murshidabad, the second campus of MDI Gurgaon.
Okay, I'm extremely sorry. I will just introduce you. Dr. Atmanand is the director of MDI Murshidabad, and Mr. Gerald Pereira is CEO of Empower O. Welcome on board, sir. Apologies for this slight mistake in the introduction. My first question to you is, Dr. Atmanand, how have the last 6 months been for your institution as far as the way education is panning out? How are you dealing with it?
As you are aware that the spread of the COVID-19 has led to the closure of most of the educational institutions in our country and all over the world. So such closures have accelerated the development of the online learning environment to mitigate the disruptions that the educational institutions are facing. However, the COVID-19 has created an atmosphere for technology-enabled learning environment. And therefore, the whole focus of the education today has become more focused on learning, but the medium of communication is through technology-enabled services. So therefore, the question that is being raised today is this: that will the online learning environment or blended learning will be able to create more resilient system, and more resilient system in the sense that will it be more productive as compared with the traditional face-to-face classroom or in campus rooms. However, going forward, these disruptions have also created a lot of opportunities for us to take a lot of initiatives in the area of doing a lot of online MDPs, like doing a lot of webinar talk series, corporate talk series. Recently, we have done the international conference that is online, which is a great success. And the participants from all over the world, participated in online international conference, and then certificate courses, certificate programs. So why not? I think all these activities through digital platform, which we have set up, are making are giving us a lot of mileage in terms of move forward. So far as the MBA education is concerned, again, we have taken the help or support of the digitizations through online mode, and also a lot of digital platforms have been adopted in order to connect with the students for lecture or for case discussions or for the examination, etc., etc.
Right. So I just want to touch upon one more point before I go to Mr. Pereira, which is that there was, I think, a need also for a cultural shift. For example, the faculty was used to a certain way of teaching, and suddenly they had to adapt to a different kind of, teaching methodology. Was that, how did you adapt to it quickly? What all went into making it possible?
See, online teaching is definitely a first time this has happened, and it's a unique experience and great challenge for all the educators as well as the faculty members. But we quickly, adapted to this kind of the challenge through our training. And so the training was conducted, and thereby how to use this online mode and how to use the classroom discussions, group discussion, etc. through online mode. So a sort of training was done, and we all together, resolved this crisis. And now it is going on well. So it's not a big challenge. It's going on well.
Right. Mr. Pereira, I think you have always been ahead of the curve, and now I think pandemic has only it has just sped up the whole process. How do you see, how much has there been that trust for online platforms that offer solutions? Do you see the trust factor is there? Is it as equal? Are people looking at it as, the same way as they look at the real-time classrooms?
So let me answer this in two ways, right? I mean, like you rightly said, and the pandemic has actually been a sort of a force multiplier or catalyst, right?
Right.
Online learning was always here, and probably more used in business schools and higher education than probably in the K-12, segment prior to the pandemic, right? It's not, but there were many schools that we saw that started to move towards digital transformation, even pre-pandemic ways, because I mean there are inherent sort of benefits and advantages to students who blend technology into their education, right? Now what we have seen is actually the sort of adoption of technology in phases. Okay. Right at the outset of the pandemic, it was just a mad scramble, because schools were literally locked down overnight. And, I mean, there was that, I think that test lockdown on the 22nd or whatever it was. And then from the 24th, everything was closed, though people saw it happening, right? And so many teachers, many students were actually stuck at home without devices, without technology, without hardware, because they'd gone unprepared into this lockdown. And so in the early days, it was the so-called traditional tools of just video conferencing, maybe some sort of social media platforms which were used to aggregate and to ensure that learning continued, right? There was also the belief, in the initial days that the pandemic was here for a shorter period of time. Nobody knew that come October, and we're almost in October, we would still be, I mean, lot of improvements, but we're still sitting and, studying from home, working from home, etc. Right? And so what's happened is over a period of time during the early days when we were talking about the importance of digital enablement and digital transformation in education, we had to sell and talk about the merits and the benefits of e-learning being a sort of a support to just the traditional forms of education, right? That is all behind us. I think today it's the other way around. It's flipped, and schools that have and colleges and institutions that have not adopted technology are probably perceived to be behind on the curve, because it's pretty it's almost necessary, and it's here to stay. So there's no more the evangelization that is required of why e-learning is better, etc. It's which solution is and what is the best fit to ensure that your learning and your pedagogy is delivered in the way that you want it to be. So I don't know if that completely answers what you want, but I mean, yeah.
I'll revisit this question. Dr. Atmanand, tell me, sir, can online education create the same immersive experience as the physical education does? And if it does not, for example, how do you ensure, because there is no time period to where the pandemic ends, how would you ensure that people have that experience of immersive nature that a regular classroom has?
There cannot be substitute, because the in-campus classroom or in-campus teaching has its own advantages. But rather, I would like to suggest for blended learning, because that is a combination of the traditional classroom learning and online learning in a way that one complements the other. However, the face-to-face classrooms practices are combined with computer-mediated activities, regarding content and delivery. However, the hybrid learning, that is called blended learning, is something which is now has become very popular nowadays in our country, and now it is going to be a future as well. So the blended learning is the need of the hour, and that covers every aspects of the education. So the educators, the students, the learners, and all the stakeholders have to adopt this blended learning technology. But that has a lot of conditions. And what are those conditions? Number one is that one should have a good internet connectivity. One should have good digital devices and equipments available or not. In a country like India, where we find that majority of the students, if they are poor, they cannot manage to get good internet connectivity with good power support, as well as the good digital devices. So I think the emergence of the concept of the blended learning has also created a huge opportunities for our government to invest heavily into manufacturing of the digital devices, as well as strengthening the internet connectivity, right from urban areas to rural areas. So it's a great opportunity. I can see it. But coming back to your question, that will that be a substitute? It cannot be a substitute, because both have advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons. So one has to look at both the things.
Right. Mr. Pereira, tell me, while we are all supporting online, classrooms and the solution it provides, but tell me, I want to raise the same question with Dr. Atman raised, that in terms of infrastructure, in terms of speed of internet, what are the major challenges that online, edtech platforms face, and how are we addressing it? How are you addressing it as a player in that? Yes.
Sure. So a couple of points. I think, one of the reasons that you've also started to see this so-called edtech revolution, and you know that, today edtech is probably the sort of the flavor of, the investment world. And the reason is that we've also at an inflection point where over the past few years, the enablers for edtech have, sort of lined up, right? One is the cheap availability of data, which was never there earlier, right? So data is fairly widespread thanks to the aggressive pricing that our telecom operators have, and so so data is very, very available, easily or widely available. The second is the devices, right? The prices of devices have crashed over the years, right? So I think and I've seen one of the first things that people want to buy is typically a smartphone. Right? I mean, because it opens a whole new world for them. And everything today is on the device. It's your wallet, it's your, it's your bank, it's your entertainment, it's your education. It was logical. It's even your food. I mean, or your food ordering. So everything is there on the device. So it was bound to happen that, the device would become, a sort of a tool for education delivery. Having said that, there are obviously, as Dr. Atmanan said, there are some limitations, the so-called digital divide, which the government is trying to address. It's been more pronounced, like many other things got pronounced during the lockdown. Okay, or during the pandemic, the whole issue of migrant laborers, etc. And this was also something that came up. The government has recognized that, and I think many governments, state governments that we interact with, are being proactive. There are other forms of delivery that they're looking for. Television is one route where technology can be combined with television to go to the last mile. So I think the connectivity is getting better. So I think that, this is just a starting point. I think, we're going to see a lot more sort of interest, a lot more investment into these areas. On the flip side, again, technology has also moved to the cloud, right? And so, so the necessity and the dependency of, the hardware and the infrastructure that one had to set up to earlier sort of distribute and ensure availability or ease of availability of technology is sort of I guess dissipating. For example, our platform Emparo, it's cloud hosted. It's been bootstrapped to, it's been adapted to sort of bootstrap to the, or to adapt to the strength of the signal, right? So it's a 2G signal, or you're in a 2G network, you will continue to get, access, but at a lower, sort of resolution, right? And there are such technological adaptations and evolutions that will keep happening to ensure that it's more widespread.
Right. Dr. Atmanan, there are learnings for all of us here. For example, the counterparts in the West, for example, how they have adapted to it. As the head of a very important institution, what have been some of the learnings from your global counterparts? If you can hear me, sorry. Or we have become victims of the bad connection also here. Okay, till Dr. Atmanand comes back, I want to come back to you, Mr. Pereira.
Sure.
Tell me, what are the big learnings here, according to you, for all the players here who are in the, in the education?
So one is that, the biggest learning is that technology is not something that's, that sort of, or e-learning rather, and the use of technology is not something that was just a sort of a pandemic bound sort of, tool, right? It's going to stay and it's only going to evolve and get deeper and deeper and more, as you said, even immersive learning can happen leveraging technology, right? It'll never replace campus learning, and that's where I completely agree. There are experiences, and the bonding that you get in person, other than, so the hard and the soft elements that you get sitting in a classroom, right? So it'll never replace learning. But it's here to stay. There are definitely benefits, because we also know that, technology also democratizes, education, right? It takes it more widespread, right? So that's one. The second thing that we've learned is that, it has to be accessible in, user-friendly formats. And we've actually seen during the initial days of the pandemic, it was the teaching faculty and the teaching staff that struggled more than than the students, because students took to it very easily. They were probably already, it is very native to, the generation X and Y and whatever generation it is today, right? And so it was very native to them. But it was the teachers who struggled, because, they're working even harder than they typically did work, right? They had to make content. It had to be in rich formats or digital formats. It had to be uploaded. And so you need platforms and you need solutions that can ensure that whilst they're powerful enough, they yet are simple for, for teachers and for students to be able to access, to ensure continuity. So that was another big learning. And the other learning, like I said, is that the mobile has really been, has been the savior for many people, because most people were locked down with mobiles. Very few were privileged to have, laptops or your tablets, etc. at home, right? It's only now in the unlock that, teachers are going back to, maybe campus. Students may not be going, but at least teachers are going on auto, on sort of, in a periodic manner, and so getting access to, better technology. But otherwise, they were also stuck at home and having to leverage off their, handsets to teach. So these are the learnings. And of course, like I said, it's more personalized. That's a very, very big learning that's come through, which was always known to us as, sort of technology players. But, technology enables you to actually go to granular levels and track the digital progress. And, so the learning outcome and the, can be adapted to each individual learner who's completely different. No two kids are the same, right? And this is where technology has played a big role.
Dr. Atmananji, since the connection got lost, my question to you was that when you look at your global counterparts, the way they have adapted to this pandemic, what have been the key takeaways as the head of the very important institution? What are some of the learnings that you have taken from their side of story?
The first learning is that we need to innovate, focus, realign, and respond to new normal. And which means that our mode of teaching, interaction, as well as delivery have to change.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to change with the help of the computer-mediated devices and the services.
Right.
I do agree with my friend Gerald when he talked about cloud-based devices, which will be able to connect with all the devices in our country, which is very much needed. Second thing is that preparedness about delivery of the courses and the interaction of the faculty members with the students in a very different way. Connectivity is very important, that we have to connect with all the stakeholders, the students and the corporate sector, right, in order to derive maximum advantages of doing the best, Right. So I always believe in connect, nurture, and grow. So right. I think we would be able to achieve the objective of CNG. Now I say CNNG, connect, network, nurture, and grow, CNNG. And that is only possible through online mode or blended learning, but for which we need a very good infrastructure support. I agree with Gerald when he said that we need robust infrastructure, internet infrastructure, or devices infrastructure, so that everybody should have not only access to a handset phone, a mobile phone, but should also have laptop or iPad, whatever it is, so that the learners can very well connect with the educators.
Right. I have one more question, which is at a granular level, which is, for example, the batch that has been facing the pandemic. They obviously have lost out on a lot of things, and it also endangers their placement. they don't have time, they cannot go back and waste one more year. I mean, what are the practical solutions that institutions are offering, and especially MDI, to such such challenge? What is the way ahead for these situations?
Ruhel, what you have pointed out, highlighted about the challenges. In fact, everyone is facing, every B school is facing these challenges. And therefore, how to mitigate the challenges is the priority that we have to find it out. Now, I think we need to understand about the emergence of the new courses, which are very much in great demand by the corporate sector. For example, the focus of the education now should be on generating new skill sets. So therefore, the students should very quickly, acquire new skill sets.
Right.
And I would like to give an example of the business analytics course. Now, the business analytics course across all the domain areas like marketing, finance, HR, and operation has become very popular. So therefore, if the students can, or we are delivering this business analytics course across all the domains for the benefit of the students, it will give them a sort of mileage when they go for placement. Second important course is the AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning. I like to say that digitization has transformed the entire world. But if you look at the various sectors of the economy of worldwide, including India, the role of AI, artificial intelligence, has increased manifold. And that AI basically consists of what? I mean, the big data, the algorithm, the data science, and therefore these combined together, provides a good business solutions to the corporate sector. So therefore, we have also introduced this course of AI and ML for the benefit of the students, which is very much in demand by the corporate sector. The third thing is about the marketing and sales course. The same traditional types of the course like marketing and sales will not be in great demand now by the corporate sector. Why? Because digitization, or the impact of the digitizations on the marketing and the sales has become need of the hour. So therefore, knowledge regarding the digital marketing or digital sales strategies have to be given to the students, which we have introduced as a special course that is called digital marketing.
Right.
Similarly, how to generate skills among the students so that instead of become a job seeker, they should become a job creators. So we have also identified several areas, and we have taken the initiatives of, for example, the entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and various other domain areas of the entrepreneurship also have been highlighted, which we are giving more importance, so that the students should also try to adapt to the entrepreneurship as a career.
Right.
And in e-commerce or in IT areas, wherever it is possible. So I think, Ruhel, these are the emerging opportunities and the areas where the B school should try to focus more on. And then realignment of these courses and other courses with the reality of the corporate sector. Right.
Right. Mr. Pereira, tell me, since the demand is here for edtech platforms, one is a lot of new players have emerged, that has also increased the competition. And second is from the content point of view, the subjects that you offer. Has there been any addition, for example, if I take your example, what kind of shifts have we seen on the content side of that, from the edutech platforms?
Sure. So, I mean, I don't think competition is really the, concern. I mean, India is a huge market, right? And even if you take the leading players, I don't think anybody is more than 2 to 3%, maybe 4%, depending on the addressable market, by way of market share. So it's a big enough thing. If anything, it goes to revalidate the, the opportunity and, and like I said, the belief that edtech is here to stay. Right. I mean, obviously, all will not necessarily survive. It will really depend on those who have, stability. So, like what we tend to say when we go to, when we are deploying, is that we never started with technology. We've been in the education space for 12 plus years, right? And so we know the thinking, the mindset, and how students learn, and the sort of very often use the bite-sized learning that needs to happen because of attention spans, and to ensure that there is better learning and deeper learning, right? And so that's where the differentiation will start to happen. So one part is the tech, but adapting tech to ensure that it meets the learning abilities and the learning processes of the different, of different age groups is what's important. And that's where, differentiation will start to happen. There will also be the technological sort of differentiation, right? In terms of, like I said, the cloud and new things, platforms, abilities to blend in, like Dr. Atman said, even technology, AI, ML will all kick into learning, right? And it'll give more predictive learning and better. So, if you're weak in an area, it'll point you in that direction. You'll get a personalized learning path. So all of that is going to keep happening with technology, and it'll better the whole learning outcome, right? And the other avenues with regard to content, we've seen it actually vary. There's no stock answer. So if you go to, let's say, the like an MDI, one of the elite learning institutions, right? They already have a lot of content. Their teachers are very well equipped to sort of put out, good quality digital content, which they then use platforms like ours to curate and to sort of to map to their pedagogy, right? So it's basically technology blending into their pedagogy. It's not a change, okay? It's an aid, right? While on the other hand, if you go to schools where, where the teaching quality may be of a lesser standard for whatever reasons, right? I mean, it could be remote, it could be whatever, that's where really content kicks in. And that's where, whatever content you have helps as a sort of an aid to that, educational institution, etc., right? And of course, with the new educational policy, I mean, there's going to be a wider base. So it's not just going to be pure, the learning in the traditional sense. There are going to be new skills that are going to be added. I think skills that were already elaborated earlier. I see a lot more, even from the pandemic, there's going to be a lot more learning about different types of skills. Volatility was something that nobody even taught, nobody even spoke how to deal with volatility, right? And now I was looking on, other platforms, and now there are courses on meditation and all, which are all being incorporated into actual learning, because dealing with stress and this whole new this new normal is something that's was never there before, right? So on the content side, that's how we see it evolving, right?
Perfect. Dr. Atmanand, tell me, in your interaction when you hear your students and as well as the policymakers, the government, what kind of conversations are happening on that front? And for example, if this pandemic continues, do we see a phase where maybe we have to open up in a very safe way? Are you preparing for that kind of a possibility as well?
It all depends upon the government guidelines, because right now we are being guided by the National Disaster Management Act 2005. So therefore, we follow the government, central government and state government guidelines, and we will abide by those rules and regulations.
So and what are you hearing from the students, I mean, who have got affected? What is their side of story?
I mean, it is the same thing, because it is something which has been accepted by all the stakeholders.
Right. Yeah. Okay. One more question is, do you see the possibility as we move on, there would be an MDI in the clouds as well? Do we see as we move on, there has to be a blended learning, Are you happening?
I said it earlier in the beginning about the emergence of the blended learning. So yes, the cloud, etc. And I agree with Gerald when he talked about the technology. It's not intervention, but technology is an enabler that will help us in enrichment of the various contents, and will also improve the pedagogy which has been traditionally adopted by the faculty members in the classrooms, is also being enabled by the technology in order to make the delivery more effective and more transparent, more interactive. Right. So it is going to change, and I agree that all sorts of the technology will emerge, so that the online classroom and blended learning would become more profitable, and it is going to be a future. It is not going to go away.
Right, right. So this pandemic is also a sort of trauma, for all of the industries, and there's no industry that does not face the trauma. When you talk to HR leaders, they tell us that, there will be a post-traumatic effect. I will take some time to come out of it. From a side of the human element that is involved in this are you reaching, how are you dealing with your stakeholders, say your faculty, the students? Are you also helping them deal with this trauma? Are there anything special being done on that front? Any special things being done on that front?
The first word that I would like to say, empathy, because we are well connected and we appreciate, we motivate, and we inspire the faculty members and the students, and we give them a good direction as to how they can move and how they can, be more capable in terms of learning new skill sets. For example, I always advise my students to learn as quickly as possible the use of SQL, the Tableau, R, Python, so that it will give them a lot of strength, a lot of confidence in terms of moving forward with the new subjects like that. So far as the mental health is concerned, and I think we have our yoga sessions, yoga classes, meditation classes, and also the special sessions by yoga guru or some spiritual masters and etc. And meditation is something which is very much which is being practiced by all. Right. So therefore, it is a question of the how to change the attitude,
right.
How to change the thought. If there is a negative thought that is coming to your mind, if you are aware of your thought which is very negative, immediately you can shift from negative thought or emotion to a positive thought and emotions by way of focusing more on, by way of engaging yourself in your activities, whether physical activities or mental activities, and connect with the people. I said earlier, connect, nurture, and grow. Connect with the people, your friends, and have fierce determinations to move forward. And consider this pandemic as an opportunity. Consider these disruptions as an opportunity to develop something and to think of something great and move forward.
Right. Mr. Pereira, tell me, the demand earlier was very individual, driven before the pandemic, to some extent, if I'm correct, maybe, how has the demand shifted to an institutionalized, direction now, as far as ed tech solutions are concerned? What are the broader dynamics in that space? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, let me put it this way. I think B2C, if that's what you're talking about, was obviously more visible. Okay, and that's because of the big budgets that some of the edtech companies have in, sort of propagating and marketing B2C products. Okay, but B2B has always been there. It's not that it hasn't been there. It's just that it's come to, it's risen to the surface because of the, like I said, the pandemic, and it's been sort of accelerated tremendously. It's like, what's happened in 6 months probably would have taken, maybe 3 or 4 years, and it's all been sort of, actually crushed into, sort of truncated into not even 6 months, maybe 3 months, right? So yes, there's a great amount of demand that is started, that was latent, which is now surfaced in institutional. So it's B2B2C, okay, because finally it's the institution which is delivering to the end customer. The end customer will always be the student or the learner, right? And so yes, so that's model, and that's the model that we focus on. We've always been in the B2B2C space because that's really, we still believe that learning has to be institutional driven. I mean, personal and e-learning is great, but that is an add-on, right? What we're actually helping schools do, and and colleges do, and other institutions do, is that we're telling them, like, whatever teaching happens, and you're a great college like MDI is fantastic college, okay, but what happens in the past, what used to happen in the past was learning was restricted to the classroom, right? But if this learning now using technology is available outside the classroom for self-paced learning, for catch-up, where you flip the classroom, they come prepared into the classroom, the dependence or the over-dependence on personal learning will start to reduce, and this itself will give way, and technology will enable these to turn sort of stronger and more deeper learning institutions in themselves. And so this is where I think we'll see a lot more. We're not going to see, we've already seen a lot more institutions adopt to platforms like Emparo. And we believe that it's not a pandemic-led sort of situation. It's bound to outlive the pandemic, and it's here to stay.
Right. Dr. Atmanand, the talk of blended learning that we are seeing right now, for example, as a situation tomorrow when everything comes back, do you think that blended model is going to stay here, or or there would be any change in that? How do you see that scenario?
Long back, in fact, I had suggested for MOOCs, massive open online courses. As you can see, various US universities, they invest heavily into MOOCs, massive open line courses, and that becomes one good source of learning as well as great source of generating revenue. So we will continue to have this blended learning, this online platform, to have more online MDP or more online certificate courses, more online conferences, etc. Because it is very cost effective. Number one. Number two, connectivity. You can very easily connect with the world, and at no cost. And the benefits out of that is immense. So therefore, the third thing that the institution will get is the source of generating huge revenues,
Right.
and which you will be not able to get so much of revenue if you do it only in campus or physical MDPs or executive education in the campus. Yes, it is the combination of these two which will help the institutions like us to move forward and become more competitive in terms of sharing of knowledge with the corporate sector, as well as generating more revenues at a minimum cost.
Just to add to that, I mean, what we've actually seen, and what Dr. Atman spoke about is the world is actually now suddenly flatter in many ways, because you can actually get faculty from abroad who can speak, and he can speak abroad.
Yes.
It's very well accepted. We've even seen, and I've been reading about job applications where people applying
Yes.
from the US for jobs in India, because today it's work from home. So you can literally be sitting anywhere and working. It's happening in education also. We know some people who get stuck in other countries are learning remotely from, a distant country. So I think, there's going to be this benefit as well, right? It'll flatten and make it a closer knit sort of learning platform.
I think my friend Gerald has rightly mentioned. Recently, we have concluded on 25th September, 2 days international conference, on enterprise architecture, IT, and etc. And post COVID-19, I would like to tell you that we had the opportunity to connect with renowned professors of the US universities and European universities and the practitioners in the sessions. And they deliberated and they contributed significantly. Similarly, we had an opportunity to connect with any professors and connect that professor in the classroom with the students through this digital mode. And that is the option which is available. So what I'm trying to say and what Gerald is talking about is LMS, Learning Management System. So today, the learning management system, with the help of the technology, is undergoing change and will move faster. So whether it is Moodle or whether it is cloud-based or whether any other technological devices, but then it is something which is user-friendly and the students will accept it, and they have accepted it.
Right. Ms. Pereira, I also want to ask you this question, that the spike that is there, how much of this upswing will remain in a normal scenario as we discover the vaccine and as...
Sorry, the hype you're saying, the hype that is there.
And the way dependence on edtech platforms, the spike that is there, right?
The spike, okay.
The
Okay,
spike.
yeah. Okay.
How much of it will remain, and are you also preparing for that kind of a scenario where it might kind of come to a certain level which may not be as high as it is now?
I think that, like I said, it's the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, you're talking about maybe, I don't know, I keep reading 260, 270 million students, right? And even the biggest edtech platforms or e-learning platforms, if you want to not even go to learning management, right, which we are not even covering a fraction of, of the students that are there, right? So yes, at some point of time, obviously, when the base is low, the growth is very, very high. We are adding, on a daily basis, not even on a, on a monthly basis, right? Because that's the adoption, and people are moving away from temporary solutions, which were there, as I said, at the beginning of the lockdown, to more long-lasting, permanent solutions, which will be stable and, will be able to scale with a period of time, right? So we believe that, there will be a couple of things. One is that it'll be new adoption. Okay, it'll be a shift from those who use temporary and stopgap sort of measures to more robust and more long-term solutions, right? And it'll also be different models that it'll evolve. Right now, when we're doing, as I said, purely B2B2C, right? At some point of time, B2C may also come in. There'll be new courses. So I don't think, I don't think it's going to really, it'll start to, sort of, I wouldn't say slow down, but flatten out. But I think there's always change, always innovation, because education is, it's lifelong learning, right? I mean, you can never stop learning, and there'll always be something new to learn, right? And there'll always be some new innovations in technology that'll help you with that learning. So I think, there's only, we're at a we're at an inflection point, and there's only sort of headroom, quite honestly, for the next couple of years. Yeah.
Right. Dr. Atmananji, tell me, are institutions trying to develop their own edtech platforms, or would there be synergy with the existing ones?
Yeah, I do agree with you, Mr. Royal, because a sizable proportion of the budget going to be spent for technological development of the institutions. Earlier it was not there, but now all institutions, all B schools, all educational institutes are going to spend and are spending a sizable proportion, a significant part of their budget on this digital platform. Going forward, yes, we will definitely spend budget for the creation of unique digital platform, which we have already done it, but we will make more investment to make it more, widespread and more friendly and more effective in terms of communication, delivery, etc. Yes, we will do that.
Right. Tell me, sir, what would be the futuristic trends, broad three trends that you foresee in the near future, that would define, the institutional learning, especially in the among the B schools?
One is the education, as I said earlier, that the focus of education is on generating new skill sets. Number two, that the very objective of education is now changing, because it is more so, it should not only be a sort of job oriented, rather it should be more as to how you can make people more employable through these skill sets. If the students acquire it, will they be able to develop their own business, set up their own enterprise, own activities? And going forward, I think given the government policies, Atmanirbhar program policies, etc., and new education policy, all these policies are basically enabler, which has given us a good opportunity to think about various types of the courses and the skill sets which can be imparted to the students so that they can become more job creators in the long term. In the short term, given the constraints, they may they like to go for the corporate sector, but then you see that everything depends upon how does this economy move upward.
Right.
So given the business cycle or cyclical fluctuation in the economy that is happening due to the external intervention of the pandemic and other forces, maybe after 6 months things will improve and the economy will go up, will bounce back. The agricultural sector is the most robust sector today in our country, and that will give a lot of big push to the stainless steel or the sectors which are facing recessions will come up. I'm very much optimistic because we have seen in Indian economy in the past also how it has bounced back. It will definitely bounce back. As you can see, how much investments are being made in the technological sectors by all the IT-enabled services, all the companies. As you can see, one of the example is the Reliance. Reliance, how much foreign investments are coming into the Reliance sector.
Right.
Similarly, FIIs, how much FIIs is increasing day by day, So I'm very much optimistic that once the economy bounces back, the education will become more productive and will be connected with the all sectors of the economy.
Right. Mr. Pereira, the same question to you. What would be some of the broad trends that would define learning overall, the whole landscape of learning?
So one is, like I said earlier, learning is getting more personalized. It doesn't mean that it's outside the classroom, but even within the classroom and within an institution, it's getting more personalized, because, the old mindset that you're sitting in a classroom means you're learning is not true. And that's what we've seen as educators, and that's what we bring into technology, right? And that's why technology actually benefits, because everybody learns at a different pace, even sitting in a classroom. And so having access to and that continuity to what you learned in the classroom outside the classroom is something that's very, very important. So that's number one. Learning will turn more personalized. It'll help for better outcomes, because it'll predict and it'll point you to exactly where you are needy in terms of catch up versus just a generic sort of thing. So that's number one. Number two is that it'll be like I said, it'll be more democratized. Okay, so like with the MOOCs that we're talking about that MDI has, right? I mean, technology will enable it to turn more accessible. So it's not somebody who's in a hyperlocal area who will be able to access that, or based on it'll be more widespread. It'll become even more affordable to that extent, right? The numbers, of course, will increase in absolute terms, right? So that's number two. Number three is that, like I say, technology, as I said, is native. I mean, today, little kids get up and the first they know how to use iPads and gadgets, etc. And technology is going to be more and more native to learning, and so whatever form of learning, whether it's kindergarten going all the way up to higher education, even to doctorates, will mean that learning will continue to happen using devices. And the government is bound to spend, because the new education policy also emphasizes a lot in personalized and digitalized learning. So that's so I see that also as a great sort of shift in.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I've been watching you on Facebook while I was in part of another thing. Thank you, Mr. Pereira. Thank you, Dr. Atmanan. Let me ask you a question each to you. First to Mr. Pereira and then to Mr. Dr. Atmanan.
Sure.
I heard you. If you had to make 3 predictions about the future of education, because as you rightly said, right now we have a compulsion to use edutech, right? Technology. When we have a choice, you talked about a hybrid model just now, also a mixed model. Both will stay.
Yeah.
But if you had to make 3 bold predictions about the future, 5 years from now, I'm not talking 6 months, 12 months. What would those be, Mr. Pereira?
So, like I said, I mean, the one is that learning will become more widespread, and it'll become more accessible, and it'll go much deeper with high quality. Okay, and technology will make that possible. Today, what's happened is it's the privileged few who have access to high quality education.
If I might play devil's advocate,
sure.
Last 6 months has shown in government schools, actually, rather than bridging the gap, it has created a gap. It has widened the gap. The digital divide has widened.
Absolutely.
So do you see that getting solved?
Absolutely. I would like to believe that, that this is something, it will not get solved overnight. Nothing gets solved overnight, but it's the fact that it's now there and it's visible to all, is something that's very, very important, which was not visible earlier. And so there will be definitely more emphasis from the government, from institutions to ensure, and it's already happening, right? To ensure that technology. I think, I don't know whether you got the part, but maybe it could be through television, it could be through other forms of delivery. It need not only be through smartphones, right? That's how it can go down to better levels, right? And what technology will do is to build capacity of quality learning at right across different stratas of society. So that's one thing that I see. Number two is that it could be that you see private enterprise coming up with because there's always this debate, and we keep facing it as well, about the sort of the connectivity between people graduating, whether it's from engineering or even for that matter business schools versus corporates, right? And if technology turns sort of a platform which anybody can use and anybody is able to use, you may have corporates running their own courses, and especially the big corporates running their own sort of management development programs using technology, where it's a straight sort of pass through into into their institutions. That's another area that one can see. And of course, with technology, as I said, it is it's also more personalized, and there are new skill sets. It need not be limited only to the traditional STEM sort of learning that happens. There are new skill sets that can evolve, which technology will make more. It'll make a more immersive learning in a more sort of a wider spread platform.
Okay, Dr. Atmanan, you have the perspective of being an academician and running a leading institution.
I would also agree with what my friend Gerald had said earlier, that education should focus more on generating skill sets. Yes, going forward, what type of the skill sets can be generated and can be shared with the students. And I said earlier that one of the course, for example, business analytics across all the domains, marketing, finance, operation, HR, would be something which will be in great demand by the corporate sector and therefore should be delivered by the institutions, because that requires the fundamental knowledge about our Python, SQL, Tableau, etc., which the students should learn it as quickly as possible, because that is very much in great demand by the corporate sector. What I want to say here, what role does a business school play towards job skilled focused education? That is the question we are talking about and discussing. Yes, going forward in future, basically we'll move towards job skill focused education, and therefore we need to develop or bring change in the content, pedagogy, and the delivery of these courses, and new courses should also be included. Gone are the days when we used to give a course on marketing and sales in the classroom, and we used to talk about Harvard or Ivy cases. Today the demand by the corporate sector and the students and the stakeholders is to discuss those cases which are full of success stories, in the area of the sales and the marketing. So therefore, digital marketing and how the various and the role of the various digital devices like LinkedIn, Facebook, and other methods of advertising campaigns, how are they promoting the sales of the corporate sectors? These are the things which are required to be discussed through a case to the students and should be connected with. So before you come here, I emphasize that I basically believe in CNNG: connect, network, nurture, and grow.
Fantastic. Just to support you, Mr. Pereira, the learning cycles are also getting shorter. On 17th October, we have a huge conference, our annual Businessworld Management Education and B-School issue comes out, which also has the ranking, but it has much more than the ranking. It has practitioners' view on what are the requirements of a corporation post-pandemic. Sure. 17th, we have a huge conference on what is the future of management education. Your B schools are graduates, but as you rightly said, MDPs, EDPs, the learning cycles are getting shorter. Individuals want to kind of learn on their own. Organization wants its key leaders to adopt new skills post-pandemic. So learning cycles will become shorter. Hence, the role of a business school may not just be limited to just teaching graduate students, rather than working with corporates, collaborating with corporates, being the captive training academy, so to say, or collaborate and co-create courses. That will happen. It's a natural corollary. And that's how also a lot of innovation on campuses will happen. Entrepreneurship in organizations will happen. Because when you start looking at an issue with a new lens, you discover new angles which result in new products and services.
Absolutely.
Thank you once again, both to Dr. Atmanand, who I can say I know well for various reasons. I am MDI is my alma mater, and I do meet Dr. Atmanand in board meetings, but I want to meet him beyond that and beyond our events. He's done a incredible job. He was the director of both MDI Gurgaon and MDI Murshidabad. Now he's leading MDI Murshidabad, and I have no doubts he will be able to grow it to a leading institution with the kind of energy and the philosophy he shared with us. And I've seen that philosophy in action. He's always enthusiastic, and that's a great thing for a leader. A great leader has to give hope and always believe that tomorrow will be better than today. So let me wish you luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I just articulated what I feel. I've interacted with you, so I've always seen him very, very excited about what MDI can be and what the students should do there. And Mr. Pereira, good to make your connect. Hopefully,
pleasure.
I will be in touch with you and Mr. Rao and we as BW Businessworld and BW Education. So for the last 5 months, we've been doing the BW Wednesday Wisdom.
Absolutely.
We did this at a short notice today because our colleague Priya, who happens to be from MDI, she's 20 batches junior to me. Her father is not well in the last few days. She's not been working, but Pratna saved the day for us. So thank you, Pratna. We're grateful to you. Otherwise, this is a regular feature. It's announced 1 week in advance. So 17th October is our Future of Management Education. We have
Look forward to it.
56 B school directors, 5 CEOs, and 10 HR heads. We have 76 speakers. All the top 50 B schools of India are represented there. So look forward to having you at that webinar. And this, the issue of the B school ranking and the future of management education gets launched there. Our next issue is the luxury issue. Businessworld.in is at 30 million plus traffic every month. The communities are averaging, the BW education community is averaging between 2 million to 5 million traffic. And it's one of the most active communities that we have. So we look forward to serving you and serving your needs as a community. And thank you for your patronage. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next
Thank you
week.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Bye.